Welcome to the Odyssey Sports Fantasy Football Show. I'm Chris Emma alongside my colleagues Jesse Pantusko and Jordan Cohn. Week 15, and it marks the beginning of the playoffs. Congratulations if you're still going. We're going to try to help you out. We got our waiver wires, our stream team, and our stealthy starts. I will get us going on the waiver wires with Rashod Bateman of the Baltimore Ravens, and he finally had his breakthrough game. The first-round pick, the rookie, came through 7 catches and 103 yards, first time over the century mark for him, and it was part of a point of an emphasis from the Baltimore Ravens again and more incorporated within that offense. He was coming off a game the previous week in which he had 0 catches, and Tyler Huntley was looking toward Bateman, and he was looking toward Mark Andrews throughout the course of the game in relief of the injured Lamar Jackson. Bateman is the kind of guy you want to have for this playoff run because I think he's got that continued upside. I think he's going to have another big game coming up this next week. If not, I think he's somebody you can slide into that lineup and you got your chance of having a big performance. If you're down a receiver, you need that kind of stash option. So I think Bateman's got tremendous upside for these last few weeks. He's somebody, if you're looking to come through in this playoff run, looking for one of those big weeks, I think he's your guy. So that's my pickup. Jordan, who's your waiver wire pickup this week?
I'm going to stay at the wide receiver position, go with a little bit more of a veteran here, and that is DeVante Parker of the Miami Dolphins. Some people began picking Parker up last week, even though the Dolphins were on bye. That was a pretty savvy move, maybe a little bit antsy, but in hindsight, it looks good now. He's still available in over half of leagues, though, and he's a solid add if you are in need at that wideout position. In his return to action in Week 13, he brought in all 5 of his targets for 62 yards in what was a promising display, and that 5 targets that he saw was the lowest of the season. So that shows how high his floor is. Tua Tagovailoa trusts him as a top target, and it's really not hard to see him drawing closer to 10 looks per game going forward, especially considering he averages 8 targets per contest this year. There's a pretty small group of wide receivers that can say that about themselves, and Parker is one of the quieter members of that bunch. So you really can't do much better as a solid flex play with a pretty good floor and a pretty good ceiling going forward.
All right, Jesse, who's your waiver wire pickup this week?
For 4 long years, and I mean long years, former first-round pick Rashaad Penny finally emerged from the abyss Sunday, shedding his bust label like a beautiful butterfly freed from its cocoon. Penny, who led the nation in rushing yards his senior year at San Diego State, has had a frustrating career to this point. But it all came together Sunday with Penny going scorched earth on the Texans, rumbling to 137 yards and 2 touchdowns on 16 carries, all career highs for the Seahawks' newly minted RB1. Truthers may dismiss Penny's blow-up as a flash in the pan, pointing to his overmatched opponent and the fact teammate Alex Collins was limited to 7 carries in his return from injury. But with Chris Carson on injured reserve and DJ Dallas largely limited to passing down work, Seattle's backfield has suddenly become Penny's to lose. Penny, who finished last week as the overall RB3 in PPR scoring, being available in 90% of ESPN leagues this late in the season, is what Cosmo Kramer would call a Festivus miracle. Whatever free agent auction dollars you have left, I'd spend them all on Penny.
Yeah, I didn't see the Penny breakthrough game coming this week, but sure enough, there it was. Jesse, keep us going. You have our stream team quarterback. Who are you looking to this week?
You know what the Bears are, Chris Emma? Toast.
Bad? Toast?
But Justin Fields looked smooth as butter. See what I did there? Against the Packers, delivering 2 touchdowns and a team-high 74 rushing yards Sunday night. The rookie committed 3 turnovers as well, but let's focus on the positive. Coach Matt Nagy probably won't be employed for much longer, but give him credit for finally letting Fields loose, giving him the freedom to improvise and make plays with his feet. Rich Rebar, a writer I worked with at NBC Sports, used to call running quarterbacks the Konami code because of the unique advantage they give fantasy owners. The dual threat Fields is the epitome of that phenomenon, functioning as a quarterback-running back hybrid. Fields' passing output leaves a lot to be desired, but he's capable of making big plays, a trait he displayed by throwing a 54-yard touchdown to Damiere Byrd Sunday night. Going against a Vikings defense that has served up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing QBs, I see Fields as a savvy streaming play in Week 15.
Yeah, I like that one as well. I will keep us going with our stream team tight end, and I'm looking to Cleveland, Austin Hooper. And I was surprised to see he's owned in just 47% of Yahoo leagues, but coming off a game in which he had 5 catches for a touchdown against the Ravens, he's now facing that Saturday game against the Las Vegas Raiders, facing a team that has allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to tight ends. So there's not a lot of great options out there, but there's better than a coin flip's chance that Austin Hooper's available in your league. So if you need a tight end, I think he's a very good starting option. So go pick him up. Jordan, which defense are you streaming this week?
Well, I went with DeVante Parker as my waiver pickup, and we're going to stick with the Miami Dolphins. But what else are you going to do when they're playing against the New York Jets? You got to take advantage of that matchup. And so, yeah, we're going to go with the Dolphins defense here. The Jets offense always seems to be a friendly matchup for fantasy purposes and for real life purposes, for that matter. But you add in that the Dolphins entered their bye week as one of the hottest defensive units in the game, trailing only the Patriots in fantasy points over the past 5 weeks. You have a great unit that has yet another friendly matchup in week 16 with the Saints on the horizon. So it's a little bit of a double week package here with the Jets and the Saints for the Dolphins if you want to stream them twice in a row. I also like the Bears and the Eagles defenses as speculative adds based on their matchups going into the playoffs. I've talked about the Eagles defense with Washington twice and New York once. And you have the Bears defense, who in week 17 for your fantasy championship goes up against the New York Giants offense, which is always a good matchup as well. So if you can add and stash either of those teams, I highly suggest doing so.
Good pickup. You're welcome to watch that Bears-Giants game for me in week 17, by the way. By all means, come into town. You're welcome to take my seat at Soldier Field. But let's move on to the stealthy starts. And I am looking again to Cleveland and Jarvis Landry, a guy who was so consistent throughout the last several seasons within that Browns offense, finally got his first touchdown. I was stunned when I looked up at Red Zone and they declared that was his first score of the season. But look deeper into it. The last 3 games, he had 15 catches, over 26 targets. The Browns are getting him more involved, 178 yards. And like I said, that score in that game against Baltimore. I was surprised to see that Landry has not had the kind of consistent production. Of course, I traded him away in my league. Shout out James Conner, who's been spectacular. But look, Jarvis Landry, I think, is somebody who's got some kind of value now. No more OBJ within that offense. They're kind of figuring out that passing attack a little bit more. I think Landry is going to be a consistent performer the rest of the way. So it's my stealthy start. Jordan, who's your stealthy start?
Landry for Connor is an absolute heist in hindsight, so kudos to you for that one. That's a season saver. But yeah, I'm going to go with another veteran wide receiver, Julio Jones of the Tennessee Titans. He had a modest return to action in week 14. He had 4 catches for 33 yards on 6 targets, but the game script didn't really dictate that they'd need to throw that often against Jacksonville, who had a goose egg against that Titans defense. So Ryan Tannehill only had 20 completions. He had under 200 yards. That game script should change against the Steelers in week 15. They're a bottom 8 defensive unit against wide receivers, which is another plus. A.J. Brown is still sidelined, which is yet another plus. So look for Jones to draw a pretty good amount of attention from Tannehill in what should be a more exciting game than what we saw against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 14.
Jesse, finish us off. Who's your stealthy start this week?
Guys, I just want to start a dialogue about Bills receiver Gabriel Davis. Though he never gets talked about, Davis quietly caught 7 touchdown passes last season, second to only Chase Claypool among rookies. And while Davis has not been a picture of consistency by any stretch, he was plenty involved Sunday, turning a season-high 8 targets into 5 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown against Tampa Bay. Davis has followed up a 4-game touchdown drought by scoring in back-to-back weeks and should see an elevated role if Emmanuel Sanders' knee injury keeps him out against the Panthers in Week 15. Even with former Defensive Player of the Year Stephon Gilmore in the secondary, Carolina's pass defense hasn't been anything to write home about, allowing 12 touchdowns to opposing wideouts this year. If Gilmore spends his afternoon shadowing Stephon Diggs, Davis could enjoy one of his better fantasy weeks, assuming there aren't 50-mile-an-hour gusts like the last time Buffalo played at home.
All right, week 15, and it's the playoffs. Good luck if you're still going. For my colleagues, Jesse Pantusco, Jordan Cohn, I'm Chris Summa, and this is the Odyssey Sports Fantasy Football Show.